Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Donovan's Daily Dose. I'm your favorite APUS history teacher, Mr. Donovan, and today we're going to take a look at the end of salutary neglect. Now, this is really going to take us back to period 3 of the APUS history curriculum, and we're going to take a look specifically at life in colonial America after the French and Indian War. So let's start first with the definition of salutary neglect. Salutary neglect is used predominantly in the 13 British colonies from the early 1600s to about the mid 1700s. And this system really focused on the colonists' ability to control their own political affairs. Colonists got to create their own colonial assemblies, and they got to vote for their own representatives in these assemblies. And the British Parliament and King remained relatively hands-off in the political affairs of the colonies. So they had that significant autonomy over their laws, over their taxes, and other political elements of colonial America. Now, one of the big reasons this ends is because of the French and Indian War. After the French and Indian War, also known as the 7 Years' War, the British government is in significant debt, defending the colonists from French encroachment. They believe that the colonists have a right and a responsibility to help pay off the debt from this French and Indian War. And one of the things they do to start this is they create the Stamp Act. Now, the Stamp Act is going to be passed by the British Parliament. And what this is going to do is it's going to require a stamp from a British tax collector on all paper documents to show that the colonists were paying this tax. And colonists are really furious because for about the last century and a half, they got to decide their own taxes and own laws. Now the British tax collectors are enforcing this tax that the colonists had no say in creating, right? It was created by the British Parliament in England without any colonial representation. And this affected all facets of colonial life. Newspapers, relying on some of the most argumentative people in the colonies, were furious because every newspaper had to have one. All legal documents had to have one. So you also have lawyers, some of the most outspoken people in colonial America. Even playing cards had to have stamps on it, which interfered with sailors in port cities like Boston, some of the rowdiest people in colonial America. So every facet of colonial life was touched by this. And in a result, the colonists start to rebel. They're going to do things like tar and feather tax collectors to show their discontent with this newly implemented Stamp Act. They are going to start to organize groups that protest against this law. One of the big examples being the Sons of Liberty and also the Daughters of Liberty. So these patriot organizations are going to start to form in response to increased British imperial rule. Now, after the tar and feathering, the protests, the British Parliament is actually going to repeal the Stamp Act. However, they also passed the Declaratory Act. This law reaffirms that the British Parliament does have the right to pass whatever the laws they want on the colonists without representation. And later, they'll implement things like the Townshend Act, which is, again, another tax passed by the British Parliament without any colonial consent. This will tax things like glass, lead, paint, tea, and other very valuable commodities and necessary commodities in colonial life. This is also going to be met with resistance. There's going to be more tarring and feathering of tax collectors, more organized protests. We're also going to see the boycott of buying British manufactured goods. So the end of salutary neglect in the beginning of British Parliament really implementing new laws on the colonists, it's going to lead to a crack in their relationship. And kind of the foundation that built this colonial empire in North America was the idea that the colonists had their own political rights and their own autonomy. That is starting to end with salutary neglect. And these are just a couple of examples, the Stamp Act, the Townshend Act, and the Declaratory Act of laws that push America and the American colonists towards the independence movement. So that's it for the end of salutary neglect. Make sure you like and subscribe. Have an amazing rest of your day.